Officials say that Peyton Gendron, a white 18-year-old man, was wearing body armor and military-style clothing when he pulled up yesterday at the Tops Friendly Market and began shooting. He picked that spot specifically for its demographics, according to officials. They say he drove from more than 200 miles away to carry out the attack in an area that had a significant black population.
10 people were killed and 2 others injured after an 18-year-old racially motivated mass shooter opened fire at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. Now, the total number of people shot was 13, and 11 of those 13 people were black. And I say that it was a racist shooter because after he was identified, there was news of his so-called manifesto. And I read all 180 pages, and it's not vague. It doesn't hint at racism. The manifesto makes it abundantly clear that this 18-year-old shooter specifically targeted a supermarket 200 miles away, knowing full well that this was a predominantly black area, and opened fire with the specific purpose of shooting and killing black individuals. In fact, he streamed this horrific and tragic shooting on Twitch before Twitch took it down. And in the video, you can see him pointing the gun at a white man who's like cowering down in fear. He apologizes to that man and then continues the massacre. So he was very clearly targeting black people. His manifesto makes it clear that that was his intent. And we have a lot more details to get to, including the weapon he used and how he illegally modified it. But Cenk, I wanted to give you a chance to jump in.
Yeah, so we have to clarify things that are super obvious because everything is debated in America and everything is turned into lies. So the guy writes a 180-page manifesto about racism and countdown to the right wing saying, no, he wasn't racist. No, it's not a big deal. Yes, everyone should have these kind of weapons. Yes, that's called freedom. Yes, the idea of great replacement theory is also freedom, and that is, and no, it's not racist. No, the great replacement theory, which is what he believed in, is that white people are going to be replaced by non-white people. It is by definition racist. So, by the way, if that were to quote unquote happen, what would be the harm if everyone is equal? No, they think white people are superior and from time to time should murder black people. And that's what happened in Buffalo.
Not time to time. I mean, his ideology, along with the ideology of other white supremacists who subscribe to the conspiracy theory of white replacement, they want to essentially purge the country of all non-whites. Deport people, murder people, whatever it takes to essentially establish a white ethno-state. And they're very transparent and clear about that. And if you think that this is some crazy conspiracy theory in the dark corners of the internet, you would be mistaken, because we have prominent Republican politicians who spew this nonsense garbage, and we have prominent cable show hosts like Tucker Carlson who do the same. We'll get to him later in the show. But first, a few more details about what happened during this shooting. There was one hero in that supermarket, a security, an ex-cop, and also a security guard who was armed. He tried to stop the shooter, but the shooter was wearing tactical gear and body armor. So it looked like a good person, good guy with a gun. Just wasn't enough to stop this heinous act of violence, extreme violence. So I wanna go to this next video that gives you more on what happened with the security guard. Let's watch.
Among those killed, 86-year-old Ruth Whitfield, described by her son as a mother to the motherless. Pearlie Young, age 77, who ran a food pantry for 25 years. And Aaron Salter Jr., a retired police officer and longtime supermarket security guard, called a hero for trying to take down the assailant. 10 of the 13 people shot were black.
This individual came here with the expressed purpose of taking as many black lives as he possibly could.
The suspect, Peyton Gendron, was arraigned hours after the shooting. He pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder. Officials say the alleged gunman drove to Buffalo from his hometown 200 miles away and live streamed the attack online. Eyewitnesses say they watched him shoot 4 people outside the store, then continue the attack inside.
I heard at least 20 shots in store.
He then put a gun to his neck, but officials say police officers convinced him to drop it.
Police officers convinced him to drop it, which, good. I would much rather him see his day in court than have the cops do extrajudicial killings. But notice the difference between how cops tend to treat white mass shooters versus unarmed black individuals around the country. But that's beside the point, I guess. I just wanted to honor Aaron Salter for having the courage to try to save people's lives and defend people's lives as this mass shooter was carrying out this terrible crime, this terrible act. He was using a Bushmaster XM15 rifle. He purchased it legally, the shooter did. The shooter purchased it legally. But he made illegal modifications to the weapon so it would have a high capacity magazine capability. I should also note that he legally purchased that gun after his school had called state troopers on him because he had threatened to do a murder-suicide. This was a year prior to the shooting. So authorities apparently showed up to the scene. He went through mental evaluations. Eventually, they left it alone. Didn't think he posed any type of threat. And as you can imagine, soon after that, within a year, he bought the weapon that he would then use in this mass shooting. And he also posted his manifesto online a few days prior to carrying out this mass shooting. And it really makes you wonder, do we have anyone looking into these issues? I mean, you hear about all this indiscriminate spying into American people who haven't done anything wrong. There are all these giant red flags, Cenk, including the school calling the cops on him because he was threatening a murder-suicide. But he's able to legally purchase a gun. He's able to post his disgusting racist manifesto where he justifies killing children as well, by the way. No one notices it, no one cares. Like, is the FBI not on these message boards, whether it's 4chan or Reddit? Like, what are they doing?
No, but let's be very clear about this. Nobody else will talk about this because they find it deeply impolite, against their business interests, etc., to criticize the right wing in factual ways. The right wing protected this shooter in every possible way before the shooting. So in other countries, when they find out that this guy had already been talked to by the police about how he had publicly announced that he was going to murder people, and then we allowed him to buy any kind of weapons he wants, they won't believe it. They can't believe it. What kind of a government doesn't protect its own citizens? What you have to understand is our right wing here in America celebrates this kind of stuff. So they're like, you cannot touch his weapons. Even if he says he's going to murder you, you cannot touch his weapons. His weapons in America are holy. Your children, your family members are not. They're not at all important. Their lives are not at all important to the right wing at all. But that weapon, they pray to it. So we literally could not stop that guy from buying a weapon because of the right wing. And that's a fact, and everybody knows that. In fact, the right wing celebrates that. In fact, they'll watch this video and go, can you believe these guys are using this as an excuse just because those weapons are used to do massacre after massacre after massacre, a lot of which are purposely racial. There's a lot more where this came from, El Paso, Texas, let alone in other countries like Christchurch, New Zealand, let alone the shooting at the temple in Pittsburgh in 2018, which was also about the great replacement theory. The right wing goes, hey, that's our freedom. Well, how about those people at the temple? Did they have freedom to live? How about those people in Buffalo that died? The 11 people that were shot at, 13 people that were shot at, 10 that died. Did they have freedom? No, according to the right wing, they have no freedom at all. Only the weapons does. But it's not just the weapons. When he publishes a manifesto that Anna talked about, a couple of days before the shooting, online, there's nothing we can do. The right wing says, freedom of speech, freedom to murder your children and talk about it and brag about it. And you are not allowed to touch that poor angel. Guys, if the authorities in America tried to stop that shooter the day before he did the shooting, the right wing would howl in this country and they would declare him a freedom of speech martyr, poor man in Buffalo, just because he wanted to murder black babies. They're taking his freedom of speech away, they're taking his guns away. Outrageous, they would say. So that is why we have nonstop massacres and ones that are deeply racial in this country, because the right wing protects them.
The right wing protects them, and I do think that there needs to be a real discussion in regard to how the media should cover these stories, because I think that most media, with the exception of like extreme right wing outlets, they have the best intentions in that they do their best to kind of like hide the manifesto, to hide, but when you do that, it opens up an opportunity for the right wingers who want to provide cover to do just that. And basically push out all these narratives that kind of muck up what the real motives were. And there is no mistaking what his motives were. He made sure that he was very clear in his manifesto, specifically mentioned that he does not have a mental illness, specifically talked about how he thinks that the replacement of white people in America is orchestrated by Jewish people. So it was anti-Semitic, it was anti-black, and it was full of paranoia and just a lot of, honestly, the garbage that we hear from Tucker Carlson during his primetime Fox News show. And so I want to get to the manifesto now, because I think it's worth talking about it so everyone's clear about what the motives were. So when you come across Glenn Greenwald, you know exactly what he's doing in trying to provide cover for white supremacists who just murdered 10 people and injured 3 others in this mass shooting.
I just want to say 2 last things before you go to that. One is, no, the thing that you mentioned as an aside, that he's still alive, the cops didn't shoot him. A lot of our members are writing in, and I totally agree with them. We just showed a story of a Latina grandmother, 75 years old, who has dementia. Her family called in the cops, and the cops came in. She's away from them, might or might not have a knife, and they just shot her dead because she would pose a threat. Latinas, black people, no matter how young they are, 12-year-old Tamir Rice, no matter how old they are, 75-year-old Latina that we covered the other day, they get shot. And almost always instantly. But you go murder 10 people, oh, it's a black part of town and a white guy did it. Whoa, let's be super gentle and wrap him in bubble wrap. I don't think they should have shot him. But can you also please stop shooting black people if you're cops? How about trying to protect all of us? I know you've sworn to the right wing that you will never protect us from their guns and from their hatred. Can you then stop murdering our citizens along the way? So which leads me to the last point. Roberta Drury was one of the victims here, and she was not from Buffalo. She came in from out of town because her brother was getting a bone marrow transplant. And she went to Tops to cook a special dinner that night for her brother and her family. And she was murdered that day. And I want you to keep her in mind, as you will now see for weeks on end, the right wing beginning to defend not necessarily the killer, although sometimes they will, but his rights to do the things that he did, his right to be racist, his right to say over the top horrible things about other races, his right to be concerned about being replaced, his right to have those deadly weapons so he can kill lots of black people at the same time, and yes, Jews too. They always come back to, oh, it's the Jews that are spearheading the replacement of white people in America. And remember that deep anti-Semitism and remember that hatred as you see that right wing go to protect him now after the fact.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.